you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbprou.com.
Good evening and welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and excited to be hanging out with you once again on Tuesday evening. As you know, small business isn't easy, but it can be very rewarding. But one of the keys to achieving the success that you're looking for as a business owner is how well you can lead your organization. There's so many things you need to know that you can't know them all, but you have to be continuously learning and developing yourself and your skills. And that's really why we do this show. We do that for you. I'm passionate about small business. My goal is to help 1,000,008 small business owners to grow their revenue, increase their profitability, and obtain financing by 2028. So it's 1,000,008 by 2028. And excited to get started on that right now. So looking forward to a great guest, a great show. And we're going to talk about something really important to you as a business owner. Business is competitive and becoming more competitive than ever. So one of the key things is to keep your product offering and your service offerings ahead of the pack. You have to be creative, flexible, and proactive. So we're going to talk about disruption and some of the keys to being the disruptor rather than the disruptee. So I'm excited about our guest, Riggs Eckelberry, and he's definitely a disruptor, an entrepreneur doing great stuff. Hey, Riggs, how you doing tonight?
Andrew, it's such a pleasure to be on board, and I love your goal, 1,000,008 by 2028. I love that.
Yep. And so definitely looking forward to that. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come hang out and share your experience and expertise with small business owners.
It's an honor.
Cool. So, you've done so many things that I can't really give that justice. So, what I want you to do is take a few minutes to really chat a little bit about your journey. I know you've had several businesses and been in different industries, and be great to sort of give people some perspective on what you've done, where you've been, some key lessons learned, and then we'll dig into it even further throughout the show. Fair enough?
I love it. Well, Andrew, thank you very much for the opportunity. So, my upbringing really was in the sort of international area. My dad was Procter & Gamble country manager, so we went from country to country in the 50s and 60s. I was born in Canada. We went to Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Paris, and eventually Brussels and back to Paris. And I look at that you remember the show Mad Men? Well, my dad was that John Hamm. With some of the flaws as well, but also some of that amazing facility. He could, an American in Europe in the 50s could literally meet with anyone, head of state, it didn't matter, and tremendous sense of projection, and I got a lot of that from him. He eventually sent me to school in the States, and that, well, frankly, was a culture shock, complete culture shock. But out of that, I formed my first goal, which was really to work in the nonprofit space to quote unquote change the world. And for about 10 years, I worked for no money at all, and 80 hours a week, no money at all, and it was very rewarding. I came out of that experience in the early 80s, and aside from working in nonprofits, etc., I really felt that the world was on the verge of major disruption, and the disruptor was technology. So I ended up in New York City in the 80s, helping to computerize businesses for the first time that were still operating on those old safeguard ledgers, bear down hard because it's a carbon copy kind of thing, and moving them into the early what we call super microcomputers and networked PCs and so forth, and learned a lot from that. Learned that you do not want to be undercapitalized. That's, if you're going to try something ambitious, make sure that you have the resources to do it. And that led inevitably to the early 90s with the dot-com. And that's really where I found my most joyous time, because computers were now being used not just to calculate, but to communicate. And we've seen the world has changed in so many ways since then. I even look back at 10 years ago, 5 years ago, how different things were. So here we are. Fast forward through the year 2000, I had a series of wins, sold companies, the usual thing. Past 2000, eventually I got to be a CEO. But surprise, surprise, I was handed a non-tech situation. The company that I managed to convince some good friends of mine who back companies that I could be a CEO, and I got the good part is you get to be a CEO. The bad part is you get to be a CEO, right? So all of a sudden there I was, and infinite adaptation is what it's all about. We started the company originally called Origin Oil because we were a pioneer in using algae as a petroleum, as oil, and so it was the original oil. And I had the best time. I was on all the top news shows, etc. Because who knew? Wow, algae. I was called Algae Man on Fox Business News and so forth. But the problem is that the floor fell out of the algae industry for biofuels when fracking destroyed the price of crude. And as a result, it just became a science experiment. And here's where I really had learned the lesson by then to not give up, but instead to pivot. And so we pivoted the company into water. Now, disruption is hard, but at least in high tech, it's expected. You disrupt, you move fast, you break things up, you have things change at the speed of light. Not so in the water industry. The water industry is very governmental and slow moving, in part because of public health, but also because, weirdly enough, it doesn't have enough funding to do its job properly. And so I spent a number of years trying to sort of figure out, well, how do I find a disruption point? And I'm happy to say I eventually did, and here we are today.
Okay, excellent. So, definitely you had a really exciting journey, and international experience is great. I've done some traveling and worked with people internationally, but it just brings out a whole different dimension in your level of perspective and knowledge. What would you say is the most valuable thing you've learned from working internationally?
Well, something that I think Americans, the strength of America is that we are unified and integrated. It's also its weakness because we're not very aware of other cultures as much. The cultures come into us and they're expected to integrate with us. Well, you learn when you go abroad to Greece or to, Germany or whatever, that you're expected to integrate with them, right? How we've heard about the ugly American, right? Um, growing up in Paris, me and my brothers would walk 50 yards ahead of our American parents. Like, please, I don't want to be anywhere close to those loudmouth American parents. We wanted to blend in. And so you learn really that there are so many other viewpoints and worlds out there. And it's humbling. It's humbling. And I think that you understand that while America is an amazing thing, it's not the only thing.
Yeah. No, definitely. I traveled to South Africa, and it was kind of interesting because I wasn't black anymore. I was colored, and so it's a whole different perspective. So yeah.
What was that, pre-apartheid or after?
That was after. That was around 2000. But yeah, no, definitely. I guess just the different definitions, different perspectives. So
Wow,
so
fascinating.
kind of interesting. So cool. So definitely excited about having you here on the show. We're going to jump into disruption, but before we do that, I just want to take a second. Today, we do the show through the Small Business Pro University. So I'm just going to show a quick 1-minute video about what that is, and then we're going to jump back in, talking small business. Fair enough?
Can't wait.
Okay. Do you own your business, or does it own you? Is your business growing, and are you making enough money? As a business owner, there are so many things you need to know to become more successful. Hello, my name is Andrew Frazier, the Business Growth Pro and CFO. I created the Small Business Pro University for you. Small Business Pro University has self-paced, dynamic, multimedia learning experiences created by more than 20 instructors who are business owners just like you. Small Business Pro University will empower you to become a masterpreneur by learning the secrets to creating a successful enterprise, to go from working in your business to working on your business. Take advantage of our strategic coaching program, or just simply choose the courses that you need at www.sbprou.com. We will empower you to thrive and not just survive, and make more money in any business environment. Welcome back. I'm here with Riggs Eckelberry, and we're talking small business. We're talking about disruption in slower moving industries. Like you said, tech is always expected to be disrupted and continually disrupted. But this disruption is really moving to most industries. And, if you're not the disruptor, you're the disruptee. And, there's one position that's much better than the other. So as a small business owner, it's important to sort of understand that, and want to really talk to Riggs about, how do you even, well, let's start with the first obvious thing, 101. What does it mean to disrupt, and what is disruption?
Yes, that's a fascinating thing. And as you were talking, I was thinking back to year 2000, which for tech was a massive extinction event, you might say, where a lot of BS.coms met their well-deserved end. And one of the things that happened for me as a marketer was that during the 90s, I had budgets to survey things ahead of time and really do a lot of research. After 2000, those budgets went away. And but by necessity, I had to find a better way to find success with marketing, with business, and I eventually branded that as something called mistake-based marketing. Now, mistake-based marketing basically says I'm going to consciously try things out and look for failure, but quickly remedy. Fail, as they say, fail early, fail often, right? So, and by the way, that's one of the big differences between American culture, business culture, and European business culture, where failure, for example, for a German entrepreneur is not an option, right? So in America, we are permitted to fail. The key is to fail while learning rapidly. So I applied the same thing to the water industry. It was truly painful, but I think it works very well, which is try things, try things, try things. Don't be afraid of trying them, but be willing to kill the things that don't work or adapt them or come up with a better idea rapidly. And don't own your failures. Don't like bear down harder, like, I'm sure I'm right, I'm sure I'm right. And before you know it, you've sunk deep into it.
Okay. Okay. So you almost could be take a little bit of credit for lean, in that that's usually how lean works, right? Well, is it lean, or I think it's lean that works where you okay.
Lean
Yeah.
manufacturing, absolutely, of course,
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
So yeah, and definitely.
Agile development, all
Yep.
those philosophies, Scrum.
Hmm.
These are all in the programming world. They realized that the problem was that one developer is very, very efficient. Every
Right.
time you add another developer, you become less and less efficient. And so then they came up with the whole agile development and, as you say, lean manufacturing as ways to rapidly adapt to what works and what doesn't. And that actually fixed a lot of the problems inherent in a group enterprise. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, no. Actually, my wife's in technology, so she did the original waterfall, and she's doing agile. She's actually bringing agile to her new company.
Wow.
So
Fascinating.
it's exciting, and it works. And because like you said, the speed of change gets faster and faster, and if you're not keeping up with it and keeping your requirements and your tools updated, it's difficult. Um, so one thing you said in the beginning was, if you're disrupting, you don't want to be undercapitalized.
Hmm.
However, most small businesses are undercapitalized. So how can we work through that, or what would you recommend, or how, as far as thinking about that?
Well, okay, so Peter Thiel talks about, are you doing a 1+1 business or a 0+1, right? 0+1 is from nothing to something. And that's very, very challenging. And that's where capital is super important. 1+1 is you're simply doing a better job of an existing model. For example, you start an Amazon business, and by now we really know how to build Amazon businesses, and you need to follow the successful methods and then do better. But from day one, you can be making money and do well because it's a well-trod path. So I totally believe that it's well worth doing. Now, if you get into the 0 to 1 thing, that's a different challenge altogether. Let's take my experience in the 80s, which was it was a learning experience, because I actually ended up giving away that business to my best salesman because I got discouraged. And what I didn't realize was I was computerizing businesses for the first time, and it was unbelievably painful. I could charge money, but I could never charge enough to really make it worth its while. What I didn't realize was all the money was in the long-term relationship. Once you get a computer customer, as you know, you're the IT shop for 20 years if you do a good job, 25 years. I was talking to Juan, the guy I gave the business to the other day, and he said, I still have businesses that you and I acquired in the 80s. They're still customers today. Think about the life cycle value of that customer. And so it pays off that you did their sort of virgin experience, and you broke them into IT and educated them, and it was painful and hard. And then you get to have the relationship, which is where it pays off. And so it's important to find where the money is and what you're doing. And so it was an incredibly valuable business. I didn't fully realize how valuable it was at the time. Juan realized it eventually, and he's made millions off of this business that I created in the 80s, and all the more power to him because he understood that. So I think of all the things to remember is that the long-term revenue of a business, the annuity value, the recurring revenue, is the most important thing you can think about, because your marketing expenses are usually very, very high. creating new customers is very high, and a lot of businesses lose their customers where they could follow up with them. I had my blinds are up, but I have these motorized blinds, and the company sold me the motorized blinds and went away. Like, well, they could sell me other stuff in this condo. I mean, there's a bunch of other things they could think of, and I like them, but they went away. And so you got to think about, how do you continue to monetize the customer relationship that you've spent so much money creating?
Okay, no, great. Great explanation and answers and examples. So, a lot of small business owners, the good thing is we're already in business and hopefully doing fairly well or decently well. But, being able to take and self-finance and try things to disrupt is still a path that we can take, even if we don't have external financing.
100%.
So, definitely that's something to keep in mind. And also, if you have the right mindset, you may be a better disruptor if you really fully understand exactly what's going on in your industry and can potentially see where the challenges and where the opportunities are. So,
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm in a capital intensive business because what we're trying to do is revolutionize the water industry, and we're enabling investors to invest directly in the new generation of localized on-site water treatment systems. And that's very exciting because we're literally in the business of raising capital to be put into these assets that generate income. And I tell you that investors love it. I mean, yeah, it works like an oil well, but it's not oil, it's water. How cool is that, right? So the important thing about, if you're going to go for capital, is how to make the capital pay off and not just cover your burn, but actually create investing opportunities that drive people into good, strong asset portfolios.
okay, excellent. And you said a little bit about what you're doing, but I think not enough to fully appreciate how revolutionary what you're doing, and so my understanding, and make sure that I have it correct, is that what you're really doing is enabling businesses to really be self-sufficient with their own water in terms of treatment and everything, which one creates more water for everyone else, and also businesses use probably 90% of all the water. So it's the market can be really big. So is that right? Did I miss anything?
No, that was very well said. So here's the problem we have, is that we think of water as being supplied and treated by the government, municipalities, counties, water districts, etc. But the problem is they're underfunded. For some reason, the federal, the state, all the way down to the counties and cities do not allocate enough money to properly treat the central systems. And as you say, 90% of the freshwater demand is by industry and agriculture, leaving only 10% for you and me. But municipalities exist to help you and me, not businesses. So how is it that industry is crowding out the individual consumer? And I believe very strongly that we need to, if you're not going to fund the centralized water system, then reduce the load. That's the other solution, right? So by reducing the load, we're letting businesses do their own water treatment. We become their municipality, their utility, right? And they pay us on the meter. They're very happy. Why? Because they're able to be much more efficient with water treatment by recycling it themselves, and so they don't have to pay for it. If I get 2 or 3 turns out of the water, well, I'm not paying for that water each time, and it's a very good experience for the company, and it removes the burden from the city, and now the city can start helping the people. And I don't know if you've noticed, but we've had some pretty bad experiences recently. Flint, Michigan, Compton, California, Jackson, Mississippi. Notice that it happens a lot with poor neighborhoods. and
Mhm.
that's a scandal, because they're at the very tail end of the process, and they get the worst water. Well, I think we all should have good water. Tap water. We should not have to be installing filters in every home. What's that all about? The water itself should be what you and I drank when we were kids. We drank from the tap, right? Well, me for sure. You're much younger than I am, but still, water we thought of was not something impure. Today, we've been schooled that we can't drink the water. Well, I would like to do something about that, and so our mission is to make it easy for businesses to do their own water treatment. This new thing is called Aquatech. Aquatech's hot. All of a sudden, Aquatech is the latest thing. And by the way, the world of investing and finance needs something new, because they've blown through high tech, they've blown through biotech, all these different spaces are just stumbling. Oil's in trouble primarily because of politics, and so here we are left with, oh wow, water, new space is coming out of the government. And as you know, anytime that a government monopoly breaks up, like AT&T broke up, it creates a vastly larger market through freeing of initiative and disruption. You can even say the internet came out of the AT&T breakup ultimately, right?
Mhm.
So we have a similar breakup going on in water. Is leading to this hot new space called Aquatech, but people in Aquatech are complaining that the end users, the businesses, don't have capital. So we realized we could be the ones doing this. So our disruption is called Water on Demand, and enables, Andrew, if you have, let's say, a bottling plant, and you use a lot of water, and we're going to let you have a water system for your bottling plant, and don't pay the capital expense. You might have a $10,000 engineering fee, but you're not going to spend $500,000 or $1 million for that machine up front. Instead, you'll pay by the gallon. And by the way, you won't even have to maintain that system. We'll take care of that too. Well, that's very attractive for a business owner, because you, Andrew, are much more interested in your bottling business than in treating the water.
Mhm.
So we enable you to just get rid of that problem, and, as I was saying, benefit from recycling. And when you recycle, the whole world benefits. It's a scandal that America only recycles 1% of its water, whereas Israel recycles almost 90%. Why is that? It's primarily because we have a much more antiquated water system that was only built with one direction in mind. Comes from the source, use it, treat it, and dump it. Well, how about use it, treat it, reuse it a couple times, and eventually send it into the ground or whatever. So that, the more we recycle, we have these big droughts happening, and meanwhile we're just throwing the water into the ocean. Every time California gets a big snowy year like it is getting this year, we get, yeah, it's great, but you know what? Most of it's going to go into the ocean when it melts. Well, hello, right? Come on. So recycling is key. We're enabling that to happen. Businesses love it, and we're creating a much larger market as a result. And really, the capital side is super important. Investors can invest in water like an oil well, as like we say. But also, we have a technology to miniaturize and modularize these water systems so they can fit in that beverage plant. Those are the two parts: the technology and the finance.
Okay. No, definitely. That's So you could say that you're changing the world, which is, or at least the United States, helping us.
We're starting with the U.S.,
world.
but okay. So this is another interesting thing, Andrew, because you and I know that the world is going through a process of deglobalization. A very good thinker called Peter Zeihan, who I've got his book, The Beginning of the End of the World. The Beginning of the End of the World is Just Beginning is the name of his book. Very good book, and he was on Peter Rogan. Very, very good interview of him there. And what he says is, look, the world is contracting. We were treating China like it was next door. Well, it's not. And as geopolitical issues start to come up, it's going to be separated by a big moat. So what does that mean? It means every region is going to start depending on itself. Well, in that new scenario, North America is a wonderful place. Why? America is self-sufficient for resources, and we have Mexico, which has better labor, more educated labor, now cheaper than China, and it's right next door. And by the way, they're a democracy. So we have the whole North American continent, and you could argue that it stretches down into Central America eventually, but I'm really talking Mexico, U.S., and Canada are powerhouses. What he says we're going to see is a tremendous resurgence, a renaissance of manufacturing and rebuilding infrastructure in America as we retool to do things ourselves. He says we're going to have an enormous boom. We complained a lot about immigration, but one good thing about immigration is it means that we have a young workforce. And places like China, Russia, Japan, Italy are suffering from an aging workforce, and they don't know what to do about it. Well, we've got a lot of people streaming into America. Not the right way. I'm not going to say it's the right way, but at least it's providing the energy, the power that any country needs, which is youth, right? It needs young people. Well, so here's what I'm getting at. If you're a small business person in America, you are going to see for the next 20 years are going to be unbelievable affluence. Yes, we're going through a recession. Yes, this horrible thing's going to happen to the dollars, all blah, blah, blah. Yes. Be ready for disruption. But in the long scheme of things, I agree with Peter Zeihan that we have a big boom ahead. Our job is to enable that for the critical part, which is demands for water are going to only increase during that period. And we don't want industry and agriculture to keep crowding out people even more at the municipal level. And that's our mission, is to, wait, I'm going to pull you off, give you your own thing. You'll be self-sufficient. You'll be super happy. Your contract will be indexed for inflation, so you'll know exactly what your costs are. And the investors investing it get their residuals. Everybody's happy. And it's a brave new world with great new technology. And this time, when we rebuild the water systems of America, they'll be brand new, newer even than Israel's, and we'll be the world leader again. I love that.
No, that's excellent. And I think a couple of the things that you mentioned, the deglobalization. I work with a lot of manufacturers here in New Jersey, more of the smaller, medium-sized ones. And one of the guys I work with, he was like, if you can't make money in manufacturing now, you're never going to make money in manufacturing. So it is a good time, and it's already showing up in that space.
That's super cool.
The biggest challenge is the employees.
Wow, you are so right. Not only employees, but good execs, right? Mm-hmm. One of the big problems that I've had that I eventually resolved starting in 2018 was having self-sufficient executives who I didn't have to tell them what to do. Mm-hmm. In fact, I have to be the guy who says, dude, it's Saturday night. Turn off your phone. Go watch a movie with your wife on Netflix. Stop, right? Mm-hmm. They're like all over it. So, but it took a long time, and it's probably the toughest job I have is team building. I couldn't agree more with you.
Okay, cool. So but that definitely the other thing. I think you're talking about good times and affluence, and this recession. I don't know if you would agree, but it seems more like the corporate side and major financial organizations are hurting from the recession, or having more trouble, or going to have more trouble than the smaller businesses. Just because if you're $1 billion company, you got to grow by 20%.
Right.
That's a lot, but as a small business, you could grow 100%. And so you've got a lot of room, and it's going to be harder and harder for them to make their growth targets.
I think you're right, and also there's a lot of tools that us smaller business people can use. CRM, customer relationship management systems, Facebook advertising, and there's a lot of knowledge out there that you can tap into. So I think the important thing is know your mission. We had a hard time kind of zeroing in on our mission for a while, and finally we figured it out. In 2018, we created a business called Modular Water Systems, which is these shrunk down water systems for businesses, and we've now been building it for the last almost 4.5 years now, and it's just taking off like crazy. And then the related thing, which is how to pay for them, and that's where the financial play comes in. So now we found our really our two-legged stool that is going to be what we absolutely have solidified with, and we love where we are. But it took a lot. It took a tremendous amount of hard work. But you're right. Our core businesses that are based primarily in Dallas, they tripled their revenues last year between 21 and 22. That is, like you say, it is a business expansion that's occurring in America at the same time that we're having all these crazy things happening with large corporations. I agree.
Mm-hmm. So that's cool. So I'm going to go back to a couple quick things because we had a couple comments. So definitely Will agrees with the Flint. So as soon as you're ready, I'm sure Flint would be excited, and even Newark, New Jersey, we had some issues. So definitely it's important. And actually Dr. Michelle Scott, one of the debates or fights in America is climate change. But that's something that could help or hurt your business in some ways. But all the indicators is it's gonna help because there's going to be more and more need for it.
100%. Let me address the first comment about Flint. We actually have a lot of problems popping up all over the place. Let's take even an affluent place like Fort Lauderdale is having real troubles with its sewage systems. Miami-Dade County is confronted with, and it is, I believe, climate change related. There's rising seawater intrusion into the groundwater, and literally septic tanks starting to fail because they're being drowned out. And so Miami-Dade, when they first developed, they did a very unsatisfactory job of infrastructure, and they allowed about 100,000 septic tanks in the county. And a big percentage of those, of course, are failing, and as a result, they're polluting the groundwater. And their solution is, okay, we're gonna build sewer lines to every one of those locations. Well, that's a $6 billion project, and by the time they're done, it'll be $20 billion, I guarantee you. And it's going to take 20 years and going to tear up all the streets. Well, that's where our technology comes in. Guess what? You can have each of those homes simply swap out the septic tank for a self-contained, what we called black water treatment system, which means black water means the poop. Treat the poop locally, and the residue goes into a sludge tank that gets pumped out once a year. That's a self-sufficient solution that could be implemented with simple rebates, and you'd be done, and you wouldn't be tearing up the streets, right? Take that same solution, and it can be applied anywhere. The problem that Flint has is they're still thinking centrally. I'm not going to be able to change Flint's way of thinking. It's not going to happen. Let's take another example, India. India is spending $90 billion damming up their headwaters. They have to do it. Big hydrologic project. Meanwhile, they have humans in the sewers in the cities, Hyderabad and in New Delhi and you name it, digging sewage and dying of sewage gas. It's horrendous. Well, are they going to put billions into that? No, they won't. Instead, self-sufficient water treatment. So what we're saying is, look, we can't rush around and save the municipalities. What we can do is unburden them, take the businesses that are choking these municipalities, pull them away to enable them to address their core constituency. You know that in Ireland, water is free? Well, why isn't it free for us? Why? Because 90% of the water use is by businesses who are basically hogging the whole system. So I have a big social justice button about this. It's like, okay, my job is to help those businesses pull away. They'll be happy. It's better for them by the better technology and the capital help. And meanwhile, over time, this helps the city handle it. Now, let me take your climate change commentator. Now, what we have to do is remember that climate change is primarily solved by better technology. Look at when you update a refrigerator, it has vastly less energy footprint, right? When you put in a better water system, you're going to use much less nitrogen and all these greenhouse gases. So modern technology, I believe, is the number one way to attack climate change, because the newer technologies are inherently better. And I think that we have to think that way. Now, what's great about it is, guess what? It makes everybody rich. It's not a poverty, right? It's not like we got to do less, got to do less. No, let's do more. Let's modernize, right? And let's think of humans not as the problem, but as the solution. So that's really my point of view about that.
Okay. No, great. So, yeah, I mean, definitely, somewhat of disruption is a mindset, and possibly a process. Is that something that you have, or you subscribe to, or like, how could someone who's not thinking disruption or hasn't been thinking disruption, how can they think more like and be more of a disruptor?
Okay, disruption. First of all, there's two parts about disruption. First of all, it's hard because it's very hard to go against the way things are done, the way things are always done. But if you can master it, then it has this huge takeoff where all of a sudden you're king of the hill, right? So let's say we're using the same idea of blinds, right? And you have a brand new idea for blinds, and that you have a new idea. Now you got to somehow evangelize it with perhaps condo developers, and you got to market it. Okay, great. But once you've done it, you're the king of the hill because you have this brand new thing that everybody loves. So I think it pays off to think disruption. Now, in the process of, let's take that brand new motorized blind idea that you had, and you figured it out, and you found a manufacturer and have a relationship, did all that work, and now you start trying to market it. Well, now you're going to find all kinds of ways to do that mistake-based marketing. Let me try, okay, I'm going to do flyer drops throughout the neighborhood. I'm going to get relationships with contractors, developers. I'm going to try radio. I'm going to try Facebook advertising. And the key is try it. Make sure you didn't fail because you didn't do a good job, right? So, try it. Let's say I've had to do a lot of learning on Facebook advertising. It's a learning experience, believe me. But once it works, then it starts to really cook, right? And so make sure you do it right. But if it doesn't work for you, then okay, that's done. I'm not going to do that. It works better for me to go do speeches at all the Rotary clubs, whatever it is, right? So you find ways to do innovatively get to your target audience, and kind of pepper it like death of a thousand cuts. Just chew away at the problem, and pretty soon, if you're aware of what works and what doesn't work, you'll start getting some momentum, and pretty soon you'll be rolling, right? Let's take, for example, a simple way to market your company, which is Yelp. Yelp for small business is very powerful, but you got to use it right. You got to be responsive. You got to offer all the right offers. As a consumer, as a homeowner, I put out these plumbing requests and so forth. I see how people respond. Do they respond proactively? They say, okay, I'm coming over today. I'm coming over right now. Are you there in 2 hours? Yes, boom. Well, they just got my business. Thank you very much. So be aware that how fast you move is going to drive how well you do, no matter what promotional method you use.
All right. So that reminds me of back in my corporate days. We had an executive, and he did a talk in the technology department, and he was like, cheaper, faster, better. Basically, that's where everything is going. And we're sort of seeing that. The cost to do a lot of things, depending, is going almost zero. in certain cases, and but you got to be faster and responsive, and you got to be better. You look at Amazon. They're
They are nonstop, those guys, aren't they?
yeah, and
Amazing.
so yeah, Google. A lot of the great companies nowadays, even if they're doing well, they're continually innovating and making stuff, either better, faster, more responsive, and less expensive in many cases. So cool.
By the way, I want to mention you put up water.originclear.com, which is the investing site. If
Okay.
people want to know about our business, that's fantastic. I love it. Please feel free to go there and learn about our investing opportunities, because you'll learn about water like an oil well, as we call it. But also, I want to point out that we have just plain OriginClear.com, where you can learn about what we do. And, I strongly recommend that people go to that as well.
Okay, so I'm going to add that to the chat. So appreciate you let me know. But we might have some investors out here. You never know. So
Well, you got to think about these days. What do you invest in? I look at the market and I go, what am I? Like, for example, the last few months I've been jumping back and forth between gold and oil, and then this and that, and I get nowhere. I'm working hard, getting nowhere, right? And so, what can you invest in these days? Well, I think that a good royalty generating asset is smart. Like, gold is great, but it doesn't generate royalties, right? So, and yeah, oil is good, but it's being geopolitically manipulated, right? So you never know what the latest administration is going to do, good or bad, about oil. So that's kind of a trap that, unfortunately, we have to live with. Water, is not very manipulated as a space, primarily because it's kind of sitting there. Nobody wants to know about sewage. It's great, right? Well, but by the same token, nobody's going to want to have a new sewage plant in their backyard, which means it's going to have to be decentralized, right? So it's going to have to be based on the business versus some big central plant, because nobody wants a central plant next to them.
Yep. No, definitely. So you've done a whole bunch of things and you've learned a whole lot. As a business owner, what have been the most valuable skills to your success?
Number one is scared rabbit. Move like a scared rabbit. In other words, complacency is your enemy, right? Just move. But with that goes the need to figure out what you're doing that's unproductive, right? Because you can run around like crazy and not get anywhere, right? So that's the two problems. Being complacent, okay, start moving fast. And when you're moving fast, get rid of the things that aren't working. And one of the biggest things of all, in my opinion, is that how do you handle scaling up your business? This is something I've been really looking at more and more, because for example, when we designed this water on demand thing, which is a way to finance businesses doing their own systems, we had to decide, hey, wait a minute, we're going to finance all these businesses. Does that mean we're going to install water systems everywhere? We got somebody in Seattle. Now we're going to go to Seattle and build a system. Well, then I got to buy a water company. No, we decided to give up that revenue and give the job to a local Seattle water company that would be completely blown away they were getting the business, and they would take care of the operation and maintenance, and we would manage the customer relationship and the finance. There's more money in being GM Financial than in being GM. So we made a conscious decision to not keep it. We have a good operation in Dallas, excellent, but growing it's really hard because of the problems of growing a manufacturing business. So instead we said, you know what? We're going to be the fintech for Aquatech. We'll be the financial tech network, enabling these pay-as-you-go systems, and then use local partners to build them and maintain them using our technology to standardize the fleet. Well, that's been a very important decision because I don't have to put into my forecast the need to buy or build 50 water companies, which would take me another 30 years.
No, definitely. I think that fits with, I do a lot of coaching and consulting, and actually both of those things fit with some of the first things that I do to assess where things are with a client. So, one of the first things I ask them is, what is your most important job as a business owner? Because if you don't know that, how are you going to prioritize and do the right things? And many times they don't know, or they didn't go into business for that, so they don't think about their job really being marketing and selling. You know,
Oh,
that's not
you never stop selling. Oh my
right.
God.
So,
But a big piece of sales is caring, right?
yeah,
It's yes, it's hard to acquire a customer, but now think about really caring for the customer and keeping them, because that was my 80s lesson, right? The long tail of a business relationship, and that is where most of the money is lost, in my opinion.
okay, cool, cool. And then, so definitely productivity is key. And then, the second point you made. Let me see.
Accuracy, right? Eliminating the things that don't work. Be
Yeah.
brutal about that. Brutal triage in a way, right?
So yeah, so you're doing trial and error, but hopefully, you know, in a smart way, uh, and guided by as much research and analysis as you can do. So
Well, Andrew, I was fascinated to learn a few years ago the difference between battlefield triage and hospital triage.
mhm.
Hospital triage is about who's the worst off that we got to take care of right now, and the rest, if they're sitting in the hallway and they're okay, then just leave them for a bit, right? Battlefield triage is who can we take care of that can go fight again right now, right? And the worst hurt are the least priority. It flips it around, right?
Right.
Well, as a business, you got to use battlefield triage. You got to be brutal with, okay, what is the resource that's going to do me the most good? This other resource that is really in trouble, but it's going to be like a black hole for me. I'm just going to put it aside for now. Thank you very much. Let me first take care of business. And that kind of brutality, I think, is needed in a small business owner. Totally.
Yeah. And one of the reasons it's tough is because you got to make tough decisions. Um, Sometimes the decision you need to make,
Mhm.
but you may not want to make it. I talk to clients all the time. One recently, he had hired somebody, but then they kept wanting to push the date back when they started. And then someone else they interviewed came along that they liked better. So I was like, well, you know what you need to do. And it's a hard decision, but at the end of the day, you got to make a decision that's best for your business. And so a lot of people would have a lot of trouble making that decision.
Yeah, and also, don't be afraid to like, okay, that wasn't a great decision. Move on. Just
Yeah,
go, right? Because at the end of the day, your momentum is everything. I love sort of having this living, breathing organization that is totally reliant on how I set the tone.
hmm
You can always tell if you're talking to a customer service person what the attitude of management is
hmm
by how the front people are behaving.
hmm
And if the front people are taking lots of care and really paying attention, you know that management's that way. And the opposite is true too, right?
Yep, yep. So yeah, then that's really the culture. And as a CEO or owner, you got to own the culture and do everything you can to um, make it a high performing culture. We didn't really go into culture. We're running low on time because an hour goes really fast. But what I like to do is, you know, we talked about a whole bunch of things, and all of them are important. but a lot of times people can only really remember three things. So if if you could, you know, pick out, what three most important things people should take away and, you know, they can use to implement in their business immediately so that they can, move forward as best as possible. I'll give you a minute to think about it. Um, and I'll play a quick commercial. My most recent book's called The Masterpreneur Playbook. So, here's a little bit about it.
The best sports teams have a proven playbook. Everyone should have one. We've got one for you because there are so many things you need to know as a business owner. Many business owners work longer and harder for less money than if they had a job because they are on the wrong path.
Break that cycle with the Masterpreneur Playbook, a 5-step business growth plan that addresses the challenges that business owners face going from working in their business to working on their business. Hello, my name is Andrew Frazier, a business growth pro and CFO. The Masterpreneur Playbook incorporates proven strategies for successfully growing your business that I discovered during my personal journey.
Is there any reason you wouldn't want to accelerate the growth of your business, make more money, and have more free time? Of course you would. Don't hesitate. Visit www.spprou.com to download a complimentary copy of the Masterpreneur Playbook today.
Okay. Excellent. So, we've talked about a lot of cool stuff, and but what do you want to leave people with? What should they be thinking about tonight and tomorrow that they can put to work to help them be even more successful going forward?
Well, Andrew, the first thing I would say is speed of adaptation. Like, adapt rapidly, constantly figure out what works, throw away the old. That's number one. Number two is think about the long-term value of each customer you get. The cost of acquisition is relatively high. Don't waste it. Really, monetize it. So what can I do to continuously monetize that customer through great care, through additional products, additional services, you name it, right? And the third thing is grow people around you who have the same culture as you, who think like you, and who are going to propel that, as you say, the culture forward, that you don't have to constantly go, you need to take care of that person. No, they get it already. And those people are out there, they're worth getting. So those are the three.
No, those are excellent. So speed, keeping moving forward, and momentum, relationships. So long-term value comes from your relationship, but also you've given thought to how you can maximize the revenue you're getting from different from each client, which is key. And having recurring revenue is very valuable. And then creating the culture. That's the only thing that's going to allow you to create a business that can run without you, and to create a valuable business that someone would be willing to buy. So great things to leave us with. Great having a chance to hang out with you and chat about business, my favorite topic. And of course, I could tell that you like it a lot too, which is great. And, always love to share things that could help other entrepreneurs and business owners.
Andrew, it's been such a pleasure talking with you. I love the comment threads. Dr. Michelle Scott, thank you so much for your kind words. It's been really a wonderful experience, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, great. So thanks. I'm going to close things out, but just hang on for a minute and let's see where we go. So, all right. So once again, another great episode of Leadership Live at 8:05. Definitely thank everybody for tuning in. Hope you found it valuable. Definitely appreciate your comments and your questions. So keep them coming. I'm going to break my streak. So for the last 2.5, maybe 2 3/4 years, I have never missed a single Tuesday evening, but next Tuesday is Valentine's Day. And that's going to be a tough one for me and for anybody potentially joining in. So next Tuesday, actually, we're going to run a non-live one, or run something that actually was already happened, but a couple weeks ago, or I guess last Friday, we had our power breakfast and conference for business owners, and I talked about how you can keep your cash flowing, and that's so important for entrepreneurs and business owners. We had a great discussion and shared some valuable things for entrepreneurs and business owners. So in place of something live, this is the next best thing. So, hopefully you can enjoy that, get some value out of that. And then, we'll be back the week after. But, I just couldn't figure out how to swing Valentine's Day. And, sometimes you need a day off anyway. So we'll be back in 2 weeks, and looking forward to that. So once again, thanks for tuning in as well. Some of you have joined the Small Business Pro Network that we're creating, and we're still developing it, but you're welcome to join us. It's a place where entrepreneurs can go to learn, collaborate, and grow, and we're really looking to create an excellent ecosystem for entrepreneurs and business owners. So you can come join us at www.sbpronetwork.com. Keep in mind, we're still under construction and developing, but we already have 100+ business owners, and our goal within the next few months is to have over 1,000. So it's a great network, access to resources, and other key things that could be valuable to you. So, so definitely that. And then, really keep in mind that at the end of the day, the key to your successful business is the more that you know, because the more that you know, the faster and more successfully you're going to grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.